Oh. Hello. Anybody who's here yet? I'm going to wait just a few more moments for people to hop on. Okay, I'm live on Instagram. I'm live on YouTube. So I'm going to just take a few moments to clear the energy. I've got my Palo Santo here. So I'm really excited to start what I'm calling Webinar Wednesdays. This is something that's been on my spirit, if you will, for a long time, to just go live and start teaching. And I will be doing this in kind of webinar style. So if you are somebody who likes to take notes, you might want to get a pen and pad. But of course, this will be available for replay. So we're going to talk about emotional healing. We're going to talk about false light. And then I'm going to also offer some time at the end for question and answer. So I've got my Palo Santo, I've got my green juice, and I've got some notes here. So we're going to just hop right on in. For those of you who are new to my channel, to my content, my name is Nefertiti. I go by Yogi Nefertiti on Instagram. I'm a spiritual coach, a distance wellness coach, and I've been working with people in some capacity for almost 20 years. I was a certified personal trainer. I still am. I've retired 2 years ago, but I've taught yoga for 18 years and various other exercise modalities. And I actually had a personal training business for 12 years where I would travel. Thank you. Hi, Samantha. Where I would travel and work with people in their homes. And I did this for many years. So I've worked with hundreds of people. I've taught over 10,000 yoga classes, so I'm really proud of that. That's supposed to make you a master. I'm not sure about that, but I have definitely taught for a long time. So I'm really excited to start this new journey on social media. And what my goal is to create a space for us to really talk about what I call spiritual practicality. Okay, we hear a lot of terms being used in the spiritual lightworker community, and some of these things are very ambiguous, because we'll hear it and it's like, okay, that's great, but how do I incorporate these things into my life? How do I implement these strategies in a practical way that's going to work for me? I appreciate the information, but now what do I do with it? And so I feel like that's my role as a light worker. And it took me a while to figure that out, because I would always ask that question, as I'm watching different videos and things like that. I'm like, okay, that sounds wonderful, but what am I supposed to do with this now? Like, is there a step-by-step? And I've even gone as far as to ask some people, like, okay, can you give me a strategy? And they would just say, well, trust your intuition, meditate, the answer will come to you. All that's fine and good, but what the fuck do I do right now? Right? Let me just preface this by saying that my epiphanies cuss, okay? My spiritual team's got language, so I apologize if I offended anybody. Hi, hello, Phoenix Diamond. Thank you for joining us. So yeah, if anybody gets offended or anything like that, my apologies in advance, but I'm very passionate about this. So whatever comes through will come through, okay? And this is a donation-based event, but if you cannot donate, that is fine. I'll leave a link in the description box below if you want to donate on PayPal or Venmo. And yeah, let's get right into the material. So we're going to start with emotional healing, okay? Before we can get into the actual healing part of emotional healing, we need to know what emotional abuse is, because ultimately that's what you're healing from when you are dealing with emotional healing. And we've all been victims of emotional abuse. I mean, if you've watched any television show, if you've lived in this life, you've experienced some sort of emotional trauma. And we have to remember how the mind works, right? The subconscious mind is not able to really differentiate between what your experience and an experience that you're observing. So we've all experienced trauma on some level, and I feel like we can all benefit from emotional healing. And we also have to understand that emotions have really been coveted over millennia by Illuminati, dark forces, the devil, whatever you want to call that darkness, that force that is opposed to light. They feed off of our emotions. Hello. And not only do they feed off of our emotions, they create situations in our world to trigger an emotional response. And this usually happens through other people, right? People that maybe have weaker vessels. They're not on the same path as you. Some people are comfortable in their darkness, right? They're comfortable living in a very lower vibrational type of life because it's known to them, because it means that they don't necessarily have to take responsibility for their lives. And we as light workers, as way showers, which I believe anybody that's tuning into this, you're a light worker or you're somebody that's just newly awakening, you feel this energy, right? And it can create blocks. So that's why I feel like one of the first things that we should do and continue to do on our spiritual journey is to engage in some sort of emotional healing. Sometimes it'll be more intense than others because life is cyclical, right? We have up cycles, we have down cycles. We're not really used to practicing gratitude. Well, I don't want to say that. We should be practicing gratitude, absolutely. But when things are going well, we don't really think about healing, right? We're just like, yeah, everything's going fine. But then we're going to be heading towards a down cycle, and that's where the healing comes in. That's where the emotional healing should take place for the most part. So anyway, like I said, emotions are highly coveted by dark entities, and they will use people around you to trigger an emotional response because that's their food. So what does emotional abuse look like, right? Because we're talking about practicality. How do you know if you are a victim of emotional abuse, currently being emotionally abused? So I grew up in a very highly dysfunctional household, as a lot of us have. I mean, I had a drug addicted and alcoholic father, a mother that was he was very codependent on her, and it caused a lot of issues in the home. Obviously, I mean, I could talk about that for days, but those types of situations obviously create emotional abuse, right? When you grow up in an abusive home, you're accustomed to feeling that way. So as you get older, you start to attract people into your life that will emotionally abuse you because it's familiar. And if you're not aware, and that's where this awakening comes in, we're more aware of the dissonance, right? And how it blocks us from our living our divine purpose. It blocks us from living our best life. So again, what does emotional abuse look like? Obviously, if you grew up in an abusive home, you definitely have an idea. But somebody that's constantly apologizing, right? I'm sorry. Oh, I'm so sorry I did this. And we know these people. We've all met these people, right? You always are apologizing. Why don't you stop doing whatever it is you're apologizing for, right? Because if you're telling me sorry all the time, that means you're aware that you're doing what you're doing. So that's just something to be aware of, right? Somebody that is indirectly projecting insecurity onto you. Again, if you're not aware of it and you have any type of wound that is triggered by insecurity, that energy is going right inside and you don't even know it. So be mindful of that. Hidden feelings and motives. That's another form of emotional abuse. And we've all met people like this, especially if you grew up in a home where there was drug abuse or any type of abuse, right? Hidden feelings and motives. You just can't trust this person. You know that, excuse my French, every time you get with this person, it's some bullshit, right? You know that they're not going to tell you the whole story, that whatever it is they're calling you for or getting in contact with you about, it's because they want something. right? They're not calling to check on you to see how you're doing. They're calling you because they need something from you. That is emotional abuse. If you know that's going on, you need to probably tell that person. Sometimes people aren't aware. I think for the most part, people are that way because they're accustomed to dealing with people in that way. If you're manipulative in one area of your life, it spills over. We can't compartmentalize mediocrity. Okay. If you are manipulative in one area, it's going to spill over into other areas. That's just how it works because everything is connected. So watch out for that. If you have people in your life that they're always up to something, right? That's emotional abuse that you are subjecting yourself to. Okay. Breakdowns and tantrums. And I'm talking about grown-ups doing this, right? We know children are going to have their moments. I mean, I have a 3-year-old and, I don't expect him to have as much emotional intelligence as a 30-year-old, right? But we all know adult children, and tantrums look different for everybody. For some people, a tantrum is silent treatment. That's emotional abuse. Because they're basically cutting you off, saying, nope, because you're not doing what I want you to do, I'm not going to engage with you at all. Even though I know that's what you want. You want to resolve this, right? Like any normal human being would if there's conflict. But this person decides that instead, I'm going to close myself off, become emotionally unavailable because I know that it vexes you, right? That's abuse. Obviously, physical abuse is going to attract, physical abuse is built on emotional abuse, right? And emotional abuse is not something that happens overnight. It's subtle, it's gradual. If you've ever spoken to anyone or engaged with anyone who has been in a situation where they were being physically abused, they will tell you it didn't start out like that. Usually they were being love bombed. They were manipulated, right? To some degree. Even with emotional abuse, it never starts off like that. It's gradual. Hello, everybody that just joined. It's very, very subtle, but it's there, right? If something feels even slightly off, it is off, period. We don't need to negotiate with our intuition. If it's off, it's off, right? Someone's constant need for reassurance. We know people like this. They're fishing for compliments. They're fishing for you to approve of them. To me, that's emotional abuse because you're not practicing self-love, right? You're not approving of yourself. You're seeking that everywhere. Social media, don't even get me started. Don't even get me started, okay? 2019 was a year of a lot of cleanup for people. And I remember having to unsubscribe from a lot of people that I've been rocking with for years because I realize now that maybe it was narcissistic energy and you can be psychically attacked through social media, right? Another thing about social media is that it lets the cowards be disrespectful without being accountable. So that's all emotional abuse when you're seeking validation from outside of yourself, or if you're on the tail end of that and you're dealing with somebody who has to constantly be validated, that can be exhausting. And it's a never-ending cycle, right? Because they're not happy with themselves. They are not going to be able to really genuinely accept any compliments. So, yeah. Controlling behavior, obviously, that's emotional abuse because that goes usually in tandem with physical abuse or sexual abuse. It's control. And when somebody's trying to control another person, it's because they don't have control over themselves. It's energy misdirected. We control ourselves. That's the only thing that we really have control over. But when somebody is not in alignment, they're going to try to control everything in their environment, even though on some level they know that they can't, that on some level in this life, we have to surrender, right? At many given points in our life, but they're going to try to control the situation, to control you, probably using one of these other methods that I talked about, the apologizing, the hidden motives, the tantrums. It's all controlling, belittling you, playing dumb. These are all forms of emotional abuse in relationship dynamics. And this doesn't have to just be in intimate relationships, right? I mean, I had to end a lot of friendships last year and the year before that. I went through a very painful cycle, and everybody's story is different. But generally speaking, when you're on the ascension journey, on your spiritual journey, you are going to have to let some people go because you're going to outgrow them. It's just a natural consequence of you evolving, right? Not everybody can come with you. And it's sad. It's heartbreaking. It's gut-wrenching. I didn't want to have to do that. I didn't want to. And I'll tell you what, the one time that I really didn't listen to spirit, when spirit told me that a particular relationship had come to an end, and I kept dealing with this person because I was like, man, I'm running out of friends, right? I don't have anybody that I can talk to. At least this person listens to me. Tower moment. If we know about tarot, you guys know what the tower moment is, right? Excuse me. I just put a post on my YouTube community page, and I did a video on Instagram. By the way, to my YouTube community, I post videos on Instagram every single day talking about the astrology, any type of energies that I feel like spirit wants me to talk about. And these are just the 1-minute videos. I haven't gotten into Insta stories yet. So if you want, you can follow me on Instagram at Yogi Nefertiti. It will also be in the description box. But I post videos every day. And one of the other ways too, the last way that I'm going to mention here, that other people emotionally abuse other people is trying to confuse you. This is something that happens a lot in intimate relationships, where there's gaslighting involved, right? And if you don't know what gaslighting is, it's basically when an event occurs, something happened, and you confront the person and say, hey, I didn't appreciate this, I didn't appreciate that. And they either act like it never happened, or they find some way to flip it around and make it your fault. That's gaslighting. And I know I was involved with somebody who did this constantly, but I didn't really know what it was at the time. So I just took it in. As an empath, I'm just like, okay, and I wasn't really aware at the time. I just kind of accepted that it was my fault, that I was the one causing all of this drama in the relationship, that I was the one not doing what I needed to do, when all I was ever trying to do was step into my power and live my purpose. But we have to understand that as light workers, as way showers, we're going to have some opposition. We're going to have opposition. And I'm going to get into this when we start discussing false light workers. I'll talk about that. So how does emotional abuse affect us? So I'm going to talk about how it affects you spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and physically, okay? And how we can heal from it. So those will be the next 2 topics that we cover. And I'm just making sure, if you have any questions at all, you can put them in the comments and I'll answer them in the video. If not, then I'll answer them on the, you can also ask your questions on the post that I put on Instagram and on YouTube, or you can send me an email if you want a little bit of privacy. Okay. So I'm going to take a drink really quick. Excuse me. Okay. So how does emotional abuse affect our spirit? The first way, and really the only way, is energy vampirism, right? A person that is emotionally abusing you, they're plugged into one of your energy centers, right? Most likely it's either going to be your sacral chakra, your solar plexus, or your heart chakra. All of our physical energy sits right here. Okay. And these are easier chakras for energy vampires to plug into, because all they have to do is trigger an emotional response in you and they're plugged in. Right. So even if this is somebody that you maybe have separated from, that you have cut off, but you have not energetically cut them off, they're still plugged in. So that'll be what I'll talk about in the mental section here. But you're not able to trust your intuition. That's the main way that emotional abuse affects us spiritually, because our feelings are the currency of the universe. All right. So if we can't trust what we're feeling because we've been emotionally abused, we've been confused, constantly been being fed like manipulative energy, then we can't trust our intuition. And when you can't trust your intuition, it's going to stunt your spiritual growth because you're going to get these directives from spirit and you're going to question them, right? Because you're so used to listening to that person and their ideals and taking that as your way of living and being, not trusting your intuition, and you've gotten accustomed to that. Because again, emotional abuse is gradual. It doesn't happen overnight. You've slowly gotten accustomed to feeding this person's negative energy cord, right? And so as a result, you're not able to flourish in your spirituality. How does emotional abuse affect us mentally? So this is where I feel like we can, how can I put this? Okay, Spirit's telling me to talk about manifestation, right? Because as we think, we become. What we think about, we manifest. So if you have mental confusion, because that is how emotional abuse starts, that is the groundwork, is to create that mental confusion, to plant those negative seeds. Then you start to manifest experiences that mirror what it is that you're thinking about. Because what is a thought? A thought is, what is a belief? I mean, a belief is only a thought that we've decided to think over and over and over again until it solidifies, right? And then it becomes so much a part of our life that we're not even really aware of it. But what we think about, we bring about. So if you are confused, you're going to manifest confusion. And this might not be in the relationship because like attracts like. So for example, if you're in a relationship with a narcissist, if you're an empath and you're in a relationship with a narcissist and they're creating confusion and delusion within you, this could manifest as poverty, right? Nobody wants to be poor. Most of us, especially if we're on the spiritual path, at some point in time, we've tried to work on our manifestation. And it just doesn't happen, or it happens a little bit, or it happens, not really in a way that's all inspiring. It's because of this mental confusion. And I see that, there's a couple of people commenting that you're going through this right now. A lot of this is coming up with the Saturn-Pluto conjunction, relationship dynamics that need to be put to fucking bed, okay? That need to be dead because we can't manifest. We can't manifest if God is not the author of confusion. That's in the Bible, 1 Corinthians. God is not the author of confusion. Light is not the author of confusion. So if you're in a relationship dynamic and you're feeling confused, it's probably karmic. And there's a purpose for karmic relationships, right? Because we have lessons to learn. But the one thing that differentiates a karmic relationship from your twin flame relationship is that the karmic relationship is not built to last. We can hold on to it. We can stay with that person. But there's people that are, Les Brown talks about this. Are you living together or are you dying together? Right? And it's a choice. If it's dead, if the passion is dead, you're just practicing necromancy, right? Trying to revive the dead. And you need to move on because spirit has so much more for you. But you have to be brave. You've got to be that light warrior. And it's not easy. Light work is not easy. It is not easy. Okay. Some of us have experienced many tower moments, many, many dark nights of the soul. And as I mentioned in my energy update, some of us are really advanced souls. So we come into this life with harder lessons to learn because we've passed kindergarten, first grade, second grade, high school. Now we're in college or grad school. So the lessons are more challenging, but we can do it because God never puts more on us than we can bear. Never. Okay. So just know that if you are experiencing emotional abuse and your mental is being affected, you're going to be confused. You're going to get into self-repudiation, self-reproach, right? I know how to do better. Why am I not doing better? So that beating yourself up, which never ever works. We know that. That's an old way of being and doing. We have to love ourselves and forgive ourselves for being human, for coming in here with lessons to learn and them happening in a certain way, releasing the guilt, releasing the shame, because it does not help. It doesn't serve us, right? We recognize it. Okay, I did this and it's, it makes me feel this way. Using that as a learning tool as opposed to letting it get you down, because that's only going to attract more of that negativity and you're trying to get out of that cycle, right? So the most important thing that I'm going to talk about when it comes to emotional abuse and emotional healing is how it affects your body. I am so surprised that how much this is overlooked. So I'm just going to give you a quick review. If you're taking notes, this might be a good time to write some stuff down. So we're all connected. Everything is connected. Spirit, mind, body, right? Your body, because it is not able to negotiate, right? Like your spiritual self is ascended, it's evolved. So there's some negotiation power there, right? We negotiate with spirit. Mentally, you can negotiate with yourself. Physically, your body is just what it is. It does not have the ability to negotiate. So that's why emotions, negative ones in particular, are so easily stored in the body. So your head represents you, who you are, right? If you're having issues with your head, it's because you're invalidating yourself in some way, whether that's headaches, you get a cut on your head. Balding is a result of fear. Fear that's so intense that your hair follicles can no longer hold onto your hair. Now, as I'm going through these body parts, this is very, very general, okay? Because of course you need to get a body scan and you can book an appointment with a medical intuitive, but this is generally speaking here, okay? So your eyes represent your ability to see things clearly, and your eyesight can be affected by, of course, your emotional body not wanting to see what's going on, but your nutrition affects your eyesight as well. So keep that in mind. Your mouth, your throat represents your ability to speak and express yourself. Sinus congestion, sinus pressure is always connected to anger. And if there's a cold involved, there's mental confusion too. Your shoulders represent your capacity, your ability to handle life, to not take on too many burdens. If you are an empath and you've been psychically attacked, you'll feel the tension in your neck, in your shoulders, because negativity likes to come in through the neck and cut off that creativity, because the creativity, your creative self, is your direct connection to the divine. So that's why they come in here, or they come in through that solar plexus chakra or the sacral chakra, because these are the heart. The heart is hard to plug into. Now you can get plugs in the heart, but it usually comes from below. The illness begins below the waist, and it's very insidious how it happens. Again, these are things that take time. Okay, your arms represent your capacity and your ability. Your upper arms, your capacity. Your lower arms, your ability. Your hands represent your ability to hold on to life, right? Helping hands, hand in hand. Your fingers represent different things too. Your thumb is worry. So if you have issues with your thumb, you're worried. Your pointer finger represents ego and fear. Your middle finger represents sex. Your ring finger represents intimacy and trust. And your pinky represents family and pretending, right? So the right side of your body is masculine, where you give out energy. The left side of your body is feminine, where you take in energy. And hello, everyone who joined chat. Thank you so much. So I like to think about it this way. If this is energy that I'm giving out, so when I'm talking about empathy here, if you're trying to decide which emotions are yours and which aren't, if you are experiencing the sensation, the pain, the discomfort on the right side of the body, Chances are it's your energy that you're dealing with. It's something coming up in you that needs healing and release. If it's the left side, then it's somebody else's energy because it's energy that you're taking in, right? So the chest and the lungs represent your belief that you belong here. Breathing problems, or Louise Hay connects it to smother love, right? Feeling like you need space. You need space if you're having issues breathing. Your stomach represents your self-esteem, your ability to solve problems. And this is the area that is connected to people pleasing. So if you get things like ulcers, ulcers are the ultimate where you're like ripping your guts out to please somebody. You're so wanting to make this person happy that it's gut wrenching, right? So think about that. And again, this is the area where people can plug in the easiest is your solar plexus chakra, because it's your power center, right? And what does darkness want? Power. What do people want? Power. So they plug into that area. They don't plug into the heart that easily because a lot of people don't want love. They don't even know what love is. A lot of people only understand the distortions of love, right? Okay, so moving down, your hips represent your emotional body and your willingness to move forward in life, your fluidity, being able to go with the flow, right? So that's why in yoga, when we are getting into hip poses, it can make you feel a certain kind of way. It may be sad or a little irritated, bringing up old memories about your ex-boyfriend or something somebody said to you, and you're just like pissed, right? That's that hip. Your legs, again, they represent your ability to move forward. If you have big, and I'm gonna say this, I don't mean to offend anybody right off the bat, but if you've got big, fat, angry thighs, that represents childhood wounds, unhealed childhood wounds. Okay? Your knees are connected to fear, a fear of moving forward, a fear of expanding into new territory. Your feet also represent fear and your ability to stand on your own 2 feet, right? Feeling supported by the universe. So that's just a quick overview of how emotions affect your physical body. We can go even deeper into certain diseases, cuts. Maybe I'll talk about that in another webinar Wednesday. So illness, basically, that's how emotional abuse shows up and manifests in the body. So how can we heal? How can we heal from emotional abuse? Obviously, the first one is getting out of the situation that is causing the emotional abuse. And that's easier said than done. I understand that, right? Some of us are in marriages. I'm reading in the comments where, and I get it. There's financial obligations, there's children. It's not an overnight process. But if you set the intention with the universe, like God, goddess, angels, teachers, guides, whatever you want to call the divine, right? If you set the intention that, hey, I'm wanting out of this. I know this isn't good for me. Show me the way. You will be shown the way. So you just need to trust your intuition and follow it. So crystals, as many of you know, I'm a certified crystal healer. So any of the blue crystals, purple crystals will definitely help you with emotional healing, especially the purple ones, because they hold the violet flame energy of Saint Germain, which is very healing. Not only for your emotional body, but for your mental and spiritual body as well. If you're dealing with sexual trauma that you need to heal from, black obsidian. So now I'm talking about the lower chakras, right? That sacral chakra, the root chakra, sexual abuse as a child, or if you've been raped, or any type of emotional sexual trauma, I always recommend that you go with the darker crystals. So the ones that are purifying, like black obsidian, fire agate. I love fire agate because you can send negativity back. Now, I will say this. I am not one to wish ill will on anyone, okay? I try to send love and light as much as I can. However, I will defend myself As a sovereign light being, I will defend myself, which means that if this energy is not mine, I'm sending it back. Return to sender. You deal with that. I've got enough stuff of my own to deal with, right? So I'm not going to allow myself to be energetically corded and drained dealing with your issues, right? So the darker crystals are great for protection too. Black tourmaline is great for overall protection, but particularly for emotional healing, I always recommend black obsidian, fire agate, citrine, if you need to just attract more joy into your life. If you've gone through like a negative cycle, which we all do, that's a part of life. You have times when you're up, times when you're down. You might need just some help remembering that life is good, that life is joyful, that everything that goes down has to come back up. Citrine is great for that. Carnelian is another crystal that's great for emotional healing. I mentioned amethyst and rose quartz, obviously for the heart chakra, right? Rose quartz is great for self-love. And the more self-love you have, the easier it is to deal with your emotional healing journey. So everything is always on a foundation of self-love, right? And if you think you love yourself now, you can always love yourself more, right? There's always more self-love to have because God is love and God is infinite. So you can always love yourself, right? So I mentioned the crystals and of course, meditation. Now I'm going to link some meditations in the community tab when we finish this live stream. That's great for emotional healing. Steve Noble, if you can write it down and look at his channel, his meditations are fantastic for emotional healing. They are very, very intense. So I always recommend that you do them before bed. I don't like doing any type of emotional clearing work in the morning because I'm just kind of spacey for the rest of the day. And when you go to sleep, sleep is very healing. So I feel like it's a nice segue into your sleep when you do your emotional healing at night. Okay. And I'm going to get to all of these questions. I'm just going to keep going here and I'll have a Q&A segment in a few minutes so I can answer everybody's question. But hello to everyone that joined. Great. Okay. I mentioned self-love, and the number one healer of emotional abuse is time. Now, let's talk about time. I'm going to get a drink. Excuse me. So time, we've all heard that time is not real. Time is an illusion. I agree with that mostly. I mean, that's what Albert Einstein said. But time is our most valuable commodity. The universe, I feel like time has been given to us as a gift for our healing, for us to take this spiritual journey. So for us to say that it's not real, it's an illusion, I don't know. That doesn't always resonate with me because you need time to do things, right? So does it serve you to think of it as an illusion when it's something that you need, right? You need time. So it doesn't help for you to believe that it's not there. Now, we can get into victim mode where we're playing that old record. And that's why I always say that if you are going to go to therapy, which I highly recommend, I was in therapy for many, many years. Therapy should be something that has a start date and an end date. Okay. And I'm not saying you got to set this goal up in your mind, but you go into it with the idea like I'm getting the tools that I need to heal and to continue my healing journey. To continue your healing journey when I've gotten all the tools from this resource, from this therapist, right? It's not meant to be a crutch. It's not meant for you to utilize therapy to stay in your delusion, right? So that you can stay in that negativity. You always got somebody to talk to about it. You're paying for a friend, right? Your goal should be to get the tools that you need to heal. And however long that takes is however long that takes. That's why time is valuable. It does not serve us to think of time as an illusion. Think of time as your tool. We all get the same 24 hours in a day to utilize to the best of our ability for whatever it is that we need to do in this life. Okay? All right. So I'm going to go through here and just really quickly answer some questions about what we just talked about before I get into the attributes of false light workers. So I hope you guys are enjoying this so far. I do plan to do this every Wednesday. This is what Spirit is guiding me to do. So this is the plan. All right. So thank you for all of the positive comments. Thank you, Samantha, Tawanda, Phoenix Diamond, Resilience. And if I mispronounce anybody's name, I'm so sorry. Sherry D. Okay, so let's see. Let me make sure that I'm not leaving anybody out. Trying to end a 10-year cycle now. I want to tell you that we have a lot of support from the universe right now. So we don't have to really try to do anything but stay in alignment. The energy is here. With all this energy in Capricorn, these planets have not been aligned like this for 500 years. So don't put a whole lot of pressure on yourself, like, I've got to heal. Yes, you do. If you're in a toxic situation, you do need to get out. But know that you're being supported, and you can ask for help from your angels, your teachers, your guides, whatever you refer to as the divine. Ask for help and support, because they're here. They're here waiting to heal you, to help you heal. This is Sherry D. I experienced pain between my shoulder blades and gut, colon problems. Okay, so anything with the upper back is about support. Feeling like the weight of the world is on your shoulders, not feeling like you are being supported emotionally, right? And anything that has to do with the colon, generally speaking, is our inability to release the old, wanting to hold on to old energies. And this could be conscious or unconscious, right? That's why meditation, and that's one of the things I didn't mention with healing, of course. That goes without saying. We should all be meditating. But what was I? Okay, yeah. So meditation will help you to tap into that energy, right? If you go into a meditative state and ask yourself, what do I need to know about this shoulder blade pain or this colon pain? Because we are the alchemists in our world, right? You have a sovereign right to know what's going on in your body on every level. It's great to go to the doctor and get a diagnosis, right? The medical community has its place. But I think on some level, we know why we've attracted certain ailments. And it's up to us to heal it. The body is the messenger. So answering your question with the colon, it's about releasing the old. And you're doing that now. And a lot of times, I'll say this, when you're starting to have issues in certain areas of the body, it's because you're ready to deal with whatever it is that's been hidden. Pluto, right? That's Pluto with this transit, these hidden things coming to the surface. You're ready to heal. And so that's why the pain is coming, the irritation, the uncomfortableness, because it's coming to the surface for you to heal it and transmute it. Okay, I hope that answered your question. I'm wearing amethyst every day. Yes, I have to get out of victim mode and just set the intention, that I'm no longer a victim. I choose to step into my power with grace, with sovereignty, right? Just knowing, being aware of the energies and deciding for yourself if something is right for you or not. All right. Pain in the lower back. Okay, this is from Christine Love. Pain in the lower back is always connected to finances, money problems, right? Being the pain in the lower back, because that's root and sacral chakra are connected to the material aspects of our world, the monies, the tangible things. So if we're feeling any worry or fear or anxiety about money, we might have issues with our lower back. Thank you, Becky. Is it okay to take mood stabilizers and antidepressants? I think that this is an individualized question, it all depends on you. I would say that if you've got a medical diagnosis and you've been prescribed antidepressants, it's not a good idea to just completely stop taking them. I do believe that you need to cycle off of them just for your health and well-being. But ultimately, if you feel like you're ready to heal from whatever it is that's making you depressed, then at some point you won't need them. So my answer is yes and no, right? Because if you need whatever it is that you need, the universe will provide, period. And if you feel like you need to take an antidepressant right now because that's where you're at, then you do that. And don't ever let anybody make you feel bad about doing what's right for you at this time. Right? I'm going to tell you, I am a very spiritual person. I try to do natural remedies, but if I get a headache, I'm taking a Tylenol. Okay? I mean, because it's just what I need at the time. And then yes, I'm going to look at where this headache is coming from or where the depression is coming from, and then I can deal with it then. But don't do anything to compromise your health, right? If you feel like you cannot function without an antidepressant right now, then you do that. You do what's right for you, but always be focused on healing and moving towards healing, right? Family curses, any advice? First of all, start with chakra balancing. And I'm going to make a note because I'm going to put that in the community page as well. Chakra balancing, right? Because we're dealing with DNA upgrades. So chakra balancing, and the spirit is telling me with 528 hertz. So I'll put it, I have a meditation on that already saved. So I'll put that in the description box or the comment section of this video. That's a good place to start with breaking curses, and that'll lead you to the other things that you need, because there's lots of different ways to break family curses depending on what resonates with you. But I feel like you should start in your chakras because that's your internal computer system. That's how you're going to be able to identify where the curse is, whether it's in your finances, sexual curses, mental curses. So do your own kind of energy scan and take notes after the meditation and just see what comes up. And then you'll be able to kind of move in the direction of where you need to go. I would recommend doing that even before you start working with somebody, just so that you can kind of have an idea of what you think it might be. And then when you're talking to that healer, that person that's going to help you, you guys are kind of coming into one accord. So that's just my suggestion. And I talked about pain in the legs. Pain in the legs is usually a fear of moving forward. Now, if the pain is on the right side, it's your fear. If the pain is on the left side, it could be somebody else's fear of you moving forward, right? Other people can be afraid of you moving forward because they don't, and it's not so much that they don't want you to move forward. It's they don't know where they're going to be in your life when you move forward. They haven't done the work that you've done. So they can't come sit with you in that area, right? They can't move forward with you. And that they can do the same amount of work you've done. They absolutely can. But if you've gotten to a point where you've done this amount of work and they haven't, then you've got to keep it moving, right? Yeah, yoga is definitely great. I recommend everybody do some kind of yoga. I also know that PTSD sends chemicals or hormones to the system, kicking me into fight or flight, and digestive systems shut down and cannot digest. Any suggestions? So yeah, it's the same thing. Post-traumatic stress is definitely an emotionally debilitating type of situation to deal with. So it's showing up in your body as indigestion, the inability to digest new ideas, right? And remember what I said earlier, that sometimes these acute things that start to show up, it's because you're ready to deal with it. It's no longer hidden from you. It's no longer dormant. It's coming to the surface for you to release. So just by you, Sherry D, asking this question, you're going to get the answers that you need, because Spirit, they're telling me that you're acknowledging that there's an issue. And they're telling me that you need to pay attention to your diet. That's just what's coming through. Let's see. Yes, and I mentioned, Becky, I mentioned pain in the hips. The hips, anything with the lower body is about moving forward. The hips in particular are connected to your flexibility. So your ability to adapt to changes, to be able to move in a different direction at any given point in time. Because remember that energy is always moving, always shifting, right? Something could be one way one day, and then it could be another day, another way the next day. And so it's about going with the flow. Going with the flow, but still staying grounded and firm in your truths, right? So we've got to be all the elements: air, fire, our passion, water, going with the flow, right? All of those things, earth, being grounded and connected, and knowing that we're being supported and guided on our journey. So I hope that answered your question. If it didn't, ask again. I'm sorry. Okay, if there's no more questions in this area, and if there are, go ahead and put them in there. I'm going to move on to false light workers. Okay, so this is a question that I get asked quite a bit. How do I know if I'm dealing with someone, or maybe watching somebody's YouTube channel or sitting under somebody's teaching, and they are not of the light? So you even asking that question probably means they're not. Because when something feels off, it is. It's just that simple. Remember what discernment is. Discernment is knowing the difference between what's right and what's almost right. Right? The 7 Hermetic principles, one of them is about the law of polarity, and mentioning that everything is a half truth. So I feel like the half truth is what's out there, and the other half of that truth is what's in you. And when those merge together, that's where you are resonating with certain materials. But if one clue, the first clue, obviously, is if whatever you're watching, whatever that person is talking about, whatever you're reading, whatever you're taking in, is giving you fear. Because fear is not of the light. Now, and I hate to say fear of the unknown, but it's just the unknown, not knowing what's going on. That can create some apprehension, but if it's not of the light, it's going to create fear and the what ifs. Right? So there's a lot of channels out there like that. I've seen the YouTube, videos titled Warning and Karma's Coming, and with all these people with explanation points, and they're just so excited, and if you don't do this, who are you to say? You don't decide what anybody's karma is. That is not your decision, first of all. And I feel like if you are maybe trying to present information to people that's supposed to be helpful, it's not going to help you to put people in fear. There's 2 types of motivation. There's really 3. There's fear motivation, right? Which does not last. So that's, like when I tell my son, if you climb on the counter again, I'm going to give you a spanking. That's fear motivation. And then there's growth motivation, where you're listening to somebody and you're getting inspired. You're getting your questions answered, right? You feel a lot better than you did when you came to this person's information. If you are watching a video, reading something, and it's made you feel worse, probably it's not of the light, or it doesn't resonate with you. That's another thing. Something might just not resonate with you. But I think we can tell when something is giving us fear, right? You have to ask yourself, what does that person want? How are they benefiting from me being afraid? Right? Is it because usually they want something from you, your money, your time. Buy my webinar because you're going to miss the ascension deadline. You're going to miss the event. Please. Okay. No, that is not of the light. You're not supposed to be trying to recruit people. Spirit made that very clear to me. We're not here to recruit people. We are here to be examples to the best of our ability, to be in alignment so that when people come to us for help, we can help them, and to anchor in that light. That has nothing to do with trying to recruit people and make people afraid of anything. We are not supposed to be afraid of anything. Apprehension, yes. We don't walk out into the middle of the street and it's rush hour. We don't do that, right? We don't walk off the side of a building because we know we're going to hit the ground. But we just have to be careful of people who are trying to give fear to us, right? That's old energy. That's an old way of really trying to, you either inspire people or you manipulate them. It's one or the other. So if you're watching a video or taking in some content that's from a light worker and you feel like you're being manipulated, that's false light. I should feel inspired. Even if you're reading my mail, even if you're saying something that makes me a little uncomfortable because I know I need to grow in that area, that's one thing. But if you're trying to give me fear because I have something that you want, which is my money, my time, my likes, whatever, you're going to be able to feel that. You're going to be able to feel manipulation. Okay? Another way that false light shows up, and this could be just my personal opinion, is when you are watching a video by a light worker and all they're ever talking about is their personal life. They're not really giving you any tools to move forward. They're just talking about all of the shit they've gone through. It's like, look, we've all gone through things. We're here trying to learn and get past that. I don't want to hear your story over and over and over again about how depressed you are, even though you're a millionaire, right? Even though you've got a beautiful home, so many things to be grateful for, but you want, every time you come on, you talking about how depressed you are. How is that helping me? How is that helping me? Get a journal, get a diary, right? Get some help. And maybe if you are going through a time of emotional upheaval and turmoil, take a step back and don't put out any content until you get yourself together. That's just my opinion. Okay. So you take that for what you will. That probably shouldn't even be on here, but I just had to say it because I just feel that. Like I watch it, I'm just like, I feel for you, Sin and Love and Light, but you've made 5 videos about how depressed you are. Like, get over it. Get over it. If you're a light worker, you've got tools to use. We all get depressed sometimes. We all go through things, but you don't have to stay there. And by you engaging all the time in this pain and talking about it and getting other people to talk about it with you, you're not going to heal from it because you're just swimming in it, right? So yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Another way, this should be very obvious, but another way that false light workers reveal themselves is when you are talking, when you're watching a video and you know this person has no idea what they're talking about. It might even be a subject area that you've mastered, that you know a lot about, but they know nothing about it. They don't know, and you're just listening. Like I was watching a video the other day, and this guy was doing some Q&A. I won't mention his name. And somebody asked about twin flames. And his response was, well, I don't believe in twin flames. What? Soulmates aren't good enough now? Like, you have no idea what you're talking about, bruh. Those are 2 different things. A soulmate and a twin flame, they both exist. They're 2 different things. It's not that one is different from the other. Do you see what I'm saying? So I'm watching his video and I'm just like, you've lost so many credibility points with me. Because first of all, when somebody's asking you a question and you're demeaning them, as opposed to just saying, you know what, this is not a subject that I know a whole lot about. I'm going to do some research and I'll get back to you and maybe we can have an exchange, or I'll maybe make a video after I've done some research. But for you to just crush that person, we're not, we're what is it? Twin flames, soulmates aren't good enough. That's not an answer. That person may genuinely be going through something with somebody and they're trying to decide whether or not that person is their twin. And they've asked you, right? And you don't know anything about it. So don't speak on it. That's just my opinion. There's so many ways for us to get knowledge, right? We don't have to guess. We can call on our intuition and ask, what is it that I need to know? Or point me to the resource so I can get that information. That's just, I feel like we have that responsibility as creators, as people putting things out that are supposed to help the collective. Do some research, make sure that you know what the hell you're talking about. All right, moving on. Deliberately trying to confuse people. Okay, so we see this a lot. We've seen this a lot in the vegan community. I've been vegan for 11 years, and I'm going to use this as an example. We've had several vegans come out and say that they're no longer vegan. They've been have not been vegan for 6 months or more, and they have continued to profit from veganism. Right? So it looks like I'm about to shut off on Instagram. But remember, this video will be available on my YouTube channel at Yogi Nefertiti. So I will speak to you all again soon. If you want to get the rest of this video, join us on YouTube. All right. So I'm going to end that. Give me 1 second. Okay. So again, just deliberately abusing people, deliberately confusing people, deliberately manipulating people. You're not vegan. You haven't been vegan for a while, but you're still continuing to profit off of people believing that you're still a part of this community. And the same thing with a lot of these spiritual gurus, and one recently that there's a documentary on Netflix about Bikram yoga. So you should watch that. That's the perfect example of somebody pretending to be of the light. Okay, if you haven't seen that. Some say that it doesn't exist and everything is light. That is true. That is true. But we live in a world of polarity. So imagine that this is light. Okay, this is my hand right here. This is light. All right. Everything is light, but what happens when we go through the birth canal, when we decide to incarnate on this physical plane, we start to separate, right? Male polarity, female polarity, because we have lessons to learn about each one. And you can look at that as light or dark. It just depends on what your perspective is. But yes, it is all light. But because we're on this physical plane where polarity is a universal principle, there is light and there is dark. And they both serve us because everything is here to serve us. All right? So how can you protect yourself against false light workers? Discernment. As I mentioned earlier, knowing the difference between what's right and what's almost right. And really being in tune with yourself. And knowing what it is that you like, because then you can decide whether or not a teaching resonates with you. And we don't attack people, right? We're light workers. We don't have to attack. All we do is defend, right? We defend the light. We're anchoring in that light and protecting that light. So we don't have to attack anyone. So if you're watching a video or reading material where there's a light worker attacking another light worker, that is not of the light, because that is not what we have to do, right? We've got our spirit team backing this up. We've got our own internal strength. We don't have to attack anybody. So that's one way, discernment. And then once you figure out that this person is out of the light, you remove yourself. Now, this person might come back around because we all go through things. We go through cycles and different situations. And our energies wax and wane because we're subject to this physical world. So sometimes people just need a break. We need to recharge our batteries. We're not aligned, we're not as aligned as we need to be. And when we're not really channeling through what spirit wants us to channel through, that happens, right? So we got to take care of ourselves on all levels. Crystals, I've mentioned this earlier, protective crystals, right? Sunstone is one that is really good at detecting liars. It's a lie detector. It resonates with the sacral chakra. So ladies, if you are dating right now and you are maybe even using social media dating, wear a piece of sunstone, right? The person that you're dating, or even if it's a man and you're dating a woman, you're going to know whether or not this person is genuine or authentic. So sunstone. Another crystal that's good for communication protection is lapis lazuli, because lapis lazuli is about judgment and being able to really weigh out what somebody is saying to you. Amethyst is another one. It's great just for all over protection. That should be one that everybody has in their crystal collection. because amethyst is not only great for psychic protection, it's a quartz crystal, so it's going to amplify any other stones that you're working with. All right. And then another way to protect yourself against false light workers is to affirm to yourself that you cannot be manipulated. Use your affirmations. The mind is very powerful. I will not allow myself to be manipulated in any way. I only see, hear, and know the truth. That's one of my favorite affirmations. And I'll say this, a lot of times when we're trying to manifest something and we're using our affirmations and it's not working, it's usually because we need to release something first. If we're trying to manifest something and there's already something in that space energetically, then it can't come in. So it just kind of sits out here until you release whatever it is that's in that space. And it could be anything. It's usually not what you think. Because like I said, energy cannot compartmentalize itself. That's a trick of the devil. That's a trick of the darkness, is for you to believe that you can compartmentalize it, first of all, and that it doesn't exist. That's another trick, because it absolutely does. And darkness is not just negativity. Darkness is the things that are hidden, the things that we don't see. So it's not necessarily all evil. That's where evil likes to reside, because evil likes to hide. But not all darkness is bad. It's just things that we don't see, things that we don't know about. All right. So I mentioned crystals. I mentioned using your affirmations and affirming that you cannot be manipulated in any way, shape, or form, and just staying strong all around. Right? We have the tools to use to be empowered empaths, empowered light workers. We're going to have our ups and downs. That's a part of life. But we can take those steps that we need to protect ourselves and to protect our energy. All right? Yeah, get you some sunstone. It's readily available and it's pretty cheap. Sunstone, you can get a nice, I mean, if you like the crystal jewelry, that's where it gets expensive, the necklaces and pendants and things. But if you're just looking for a little tumbled stone, I mean, you can go to a crystal shop and get one for less than $2, right? So just depending on how fancy you want to get. I mean, when I started working with crystals, I was broke. I was dead broke. All I could afford were tumbled stones. And they helped me, right? They still hold the same frequency and energy if they're not in jewelry or anything like that. Sherry, there seems to be put downs on both sides of veganism and meat eaters. North Americans eat meat with reverence that most people don't do. Plants have a consciousness also. I do have to disagree that plants don't have a consciousness, only because it's been scientifically proven that in order to have a consciousness, you have to have a central nervous system. And plants don't have that. The central nervous system is connected to your feelings. So if you don't have that, then you don't have a consciousness. Plants do have spirit. Spirit and consciousness are two different things. They're one and the same, but they're different, right? We have spirits and we're conscious. Conscious means that we can interact with our environment, right? Plants, for the most part, if they're not in the right environment, they won't grow. The same thing goes for us. But a plant, if it's not in the right environment, it won't grow. We, as human beings, we can make the choice to adapt to our environment to a certain degree, right? We can adapt. Well, we do, not even to a certain degree. We do. We adapt to all kinds of situations. So to me, that's the difference between something being conscious and not conscious, is our ability to adapt to changes. Ooh, that's powerful. All right, so I'm going to wrap up here. If you have any other questions, I'll be checking back on this post a little bit later to answer any questions that you may have. And if you have any questions before next Wednesday, or if there's anything that you want me to talk about, please include it in the comments, and I absolutely will. Also, I do plan on, like I said, doing this every Wednesday. And there was something else I wanted to tell you guys. Oh, I will have the energy update out on Friday, between Friday and Saturday. It just depends. I have a little one and we try to hang out on Friday night. So I try to have everything done before then and have it uploading. So if it's not up by Friday night, it'll be Saturday morning for the following week. All right. So thank you all for watching. I really, really appreciate you coming on, and I will see you next Wednesday. All right. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. Namaste.